to our Truth and Reconciliation service.
The reason I'm saying anything at this point is because I want to introduce to you Margaret Franz, who is the sister of Mary Steinhauser. And Mary Steinhauser was a social worker at the BC Penitentiary in 1975 and was taken as a hostage in a situation there. I happened to be a reporter at the BC Penitentiary at that time, writing about that story. For some reason, which may become evident to you as Margaret speaks, that story has remained with me for all that time. Probably because something still has to be done. Probably because justice has not been served. And I guess I'll stop there. And Margaret, you can carry on and say what needs to be said.
Thank you very much, Alex, and thank you for inviting me to come to speak today about not only truth and reconciliation, but to add my voice and the voice of my sister, Mary Steinhauser, who worked tirelessly on behalf of not only Aboriginal inmates in the prison system, but all inmates in the penitentiary and penal system throughout her brief time at the BC Penitentiary, but also for her work with the mentally ill and disadvantaged. Just by way of introduction, I am her sister. We both attended Simon Fraser University during the late 60s. Mary was, prior to her going to Simon Fraser, she was a registered psychiatric nurse. She graduated from Riverview in Essendale in 1962, and following that, she worked at Essendale at Toronto Hill School in Kamloops, and at the Matsky Institution for the time before she started her university career at Simon Fraser. She obtained her Bachelor of Arts in Psychology and Sociology, and went on from there to get her master's in social work at UBC. On October 22nd, 1973, she was hired on as a classification officer at the BC Penitentiary, and began her work in the rehabilitative program, which was then becoming very much a thrust of not only the federal government, but of penal institutions throughout North America. And she was very much loved by the inmates who came to her with all of their requests for various types of programs. Mary was particularly interested in how education would benefit inmates, and as a result, she would bring to their attention various programs that they could be available to take advantage of, and they did. On June the 9th, 1975, Mary was taken along with 14 or 15 other classification officers. They were held hostage by 3 inmates who were attempting an escape from the prison, and that event lasted for 41 hours. In the early morning of June the 11th, at about approximately 1 o'clock in the morning, there was an attempt by several of the classification officers who were being held in a very small vault. They attempted to basically subdue one of the inmates and to attempt to escape. The next few minutes, a tactical guard of prison guards were burst in with their guns blazing, and my sister, who was being held as the principal hostage by the 3 inmates, came into the line of fire, and she was shot to death. She was the only one who was shot that day. Everyone else managed to come out of that unharmed. So, as you can imagine, this was a terrible and tragic event, and it occupied newspapers and the media for a year following. Her death was the subject of a commission inquiry in June, immediately following the event. And again, the following year, it was the subject of a coroner's inquest. At 6 weeks, it was the longest running inquest in the history of BC. But let me fast forward to today and why I'm here. And that is because I wanted something good and true to come out of her death and her sacrifice, because she was so very brave in all of her actions and in her dedication to those whose care she was responsible for. And so my purpose today is to tell you that I established two years ago, in 2012, I established a bursary in her name, the Mary Steinhauser Memorial Bursary, and the recipients are SFU Aboriginal students in the undergraduate program in arts and sciences. To date, there have been 2 bursary recipients, one in 2012 and one in 2013, and I look forward to offering the bursary again in 2014. However, my fond hope is that I can pursue that bursary for a very long time. And so I decided this year to plan a fundraising event in 2014, and the exact time and date are March the 29th, 2014, the Saturday evening. It's going to be at the Terry Fox Theatre in Port Coquitlam, and it's going to be, I've promoted it as an evening of story, song, and dance. And it's going to celebrate Mary's life, and all of the proceeds from that event will go towards the Mary Steinhauser Memorial Bursary for Aboriginal undergrads in the arts and sciences. So I welcome you and invite you, if you can and are able, to come to the event and to share in what is going to be a one-time only event to raise money for this wonderful cause and to support the Aboriginal community in a very positive and meaningful way. So thank you very much.
Well, it's good to be here. And my name's Isidore, and I went to residential school. I was called let's back up. My name is Yemo, Isidore and Yenemositsa, and my real name is Yemo, my kid name. My people know me as Yemo. But my full name for Indian is Yenemositsa, means willow blanket, and my Christian name is Isidore. I'm from the Okanagan Thompson Nation. And you know, I went to the residential school in Kamloops, and I went to the reconciliation deal in Vancouver, and it was an awesome 4 days. A lot of powerful speakers, and our people were like, wow, man, this was time to go forward. There was a lot of hurts, a lot of tears. I'm telling you, the tears could have flooded the floor. It was so sorrowful, some places. And my mother went to Kamloops. I went to Kamloops Residential School. My mother went to Anglican Church Residential School in Lytton, BC. So she was an Anglican. And it was my mom who prayed a lot for me that I would straighten up from the alcohol. Due to the residential school, I became an alcoholic at a young age. And I had a tragic life, and most of my life was all about alcohol. I was abused in the residential school, beat up, mentally, physically, spiritually. I was afraid of God in a big, big way. The fear of God then, it came to me in a different way. I was like, talk about these little Indians, and you tell me that I'm a little heathen, and I'm a little redskin, and wagon burner, and they'd show movies of me, of my people getting shot. And so I was at the wits of where am I supposed to be here? And then they'd show movies of saints, and I want to be a saint one day. That's a cowboy the next day, you know, like I wanted to be a sheriff, pack the star. I didn't want to be this little Indian kid. You know, that was hard on me. So, well, anyways, through a lot of prayers, I was able to eventually reconcile. I had come together in my mind. It's, you know, Isidore, you can't keep drinking. And one day I mumbled, you know, I think I should try AA. And a friend of mine, Senator Patty, said, what? I said, I think I should try AA. So he said, stay home today and I'll go get you. So that's when I heard about God again. There is a higher power. That's when I realized, you know, I haven't really tried that. I've heard about God. I've been to the altar how many times trying to reach Him. You know, been disappointed so many times. And this time, well, I gave it a shot. Mom, being an Anglican, she prayed for me all the time as a little boy growing up. And I finally, with Senator Patty's help, I beat the alcohol. And I have, I'm going to leave this with you. This is called Yemo Comes Home. You can read it on the web. It's my life as a little boy. Before I went to residential school, my name was Yemo. And I got there, and they told me by a big surprise that my name was actually Isidore. So I was, Isidore is my new name? I thought, wow, I was telling other kids my new name. And from that day on, Yemo was no longer spoken, it was always Isidore. So I spent 8 years there. And Isidore had a pretty tragic life in there. I left around by grade 8. I spent 8 years in that place there. And I came out as Isidore, the little alcoholic, that lost his language, lost a lot of things. And Isidore was actually was a laborer from there on in. He just did a lot of labor jobs. Never got amounted to much for education. And but now I'm doing fine. I work at the prisons now. I work at Kent, Mountain, and Matsuka. And I told my story. Simon Fraser University. I met 3 classes there. talk about my journey back. And God is in it. And my brothers are in this little film, 28 minutes. And it'll bring tears to your eyes, but it also will help you understand our people. And every time I see it, I cry every time, even though I've seen it so many times. I still just can't help it. And it's about coming home to grandmother. Everybody can remember a grandmother that they can come home to. After all these years, only solace and comfort I had is when I looked up into grandmother's eyes. And I look up, and she looks down, and she says, pats my head, Yamo, it's good to see you again, my little image. Oh, I could wish I could hold on that forever. But I have to go back again and again and again. So you will see this, and sometimes you will see this, and I'm sure you could watch it here if you like sometimes, and I'll leave this card with you. And, yep, that's all I can say for now, and I'll say a little prayer before I close the book. Creator, Father in heaven, we all thank you for this time together. We all go forward and mend, reconcile, come together as one heart, one spirit, to move on. And we are all people of the land. We looked after the land before they came, Creator. You gave this to us, and we have to share this.
Thank you very much, all of you, for having the heart and having the care and the concern to pay attention to what is happening today in Canada. And I come from Urania City, Saskatchewan, which is on Lake Athabasca. And up there was a Roman Catholic mission, what they call a residential school here. And my mother and my father were both in there, my aunts and my uncles, my grandmothers and my grandfathers on both sides, and my oldest cousins, my older brother. The one thing that I know that happened there was that the little children learned that they were not important, that they were insignificant, they didn't have a voice, and you know, when you're treated like that as a child, it's like you become almost like nothing, like empty. And you have no identity and you belong nowhere. And even more than that, though, is that not only do you, it's not that you belong nowhere, but it's that where you did belong is a place of evil. You know, saying, you know, the way that we prayed was devil worshiping, our language that we spoke was the devil's tongue, so that, you know, being taught that our identity, our ground of being, is something to be ashamed of, something to reject and avoid at all costs. So these children grow up in that and become educated in that, and at an age when they're no longer children, they are sent back out. Many to go back to their homes which they see now as evil, which they see now as dirty. And these children have nowhere they belong. They do not know how to hunt or fish anymore, and they do not know how to even be in a family relationship. They don't know how to be a daughter or a son, or how to be sisters or brothers. They don't know how to be mothers or fathers, because growing up in an institution, there's no learning, there's no teaching on how to be nurtured and cared for. So my mother told me that the Bible was not something to pay any attention to, and that to stay away from Christians. And I didn't get to go to residential school. She was very happy for me that I didn't get to go to residential school, because by the time I became school age, residential school was no longer. I went to public school. So this is what happened in my family. But there was a priest in Uranium City back then, and we used to cut through his yard to go home. And one morning, we were playing in the yard, and he came out and we started to run away because, we thought they were going to, whip us with a stick and tell us to get out of there. And the priest said, no, stop, don't run away. Do you want to play? Do you want to come and play? You can come inside. Do you want to look inside? And so my brother and I went back, and we really wanted to go and see what the manse looked like. And, where do priests live? They're these heavenly beings. So we went in, and he showed us the kitchen and the living room, and then he said, would you like to play confession? And that sounded fun. So we went, and he let us go in where the priest sits, and he sat in where the confessor sits, and he let us pretend that we were the priest. Now, this is very, very personal. This is one-on-one. And this is what I say, this is God with skin on. And this is what is required today. What is required from each one of us is to welcome and to express to the one in front of you that you meet how significant they are and how important they are. And the fact that, this priest thought that it was important enough for us to see us and to meet us where we were at, to play a game with us, is very, very not normal. And this priest turned out to be one of the best priests in the north, and he also every summer did an excursion from Halifax to Vancouver on a bicycle, and this is what he did for his holidays for 1 month in the summer. So he wasn't your average clergy, and I also think that's another one of the requirements of God, to be a God presence for someone, is that we follow the Spirit. We listen to what is required, and we act according to that, rather than be bound by so many laws and restrictions. So this is what I do now in the downtown Vancouver, downtown east side, is I do with each individual person that I meet, I try to meet them where they are at, and I think, how can I speak to this person? How can I get them to identify with me and see that we are together? They are not alone, that I'm with them and they are with me. And we are walking together. And it's so, with addiction, with violence, with all of the ways that we can be alienated and isolated, all of the ways that we are moved and pushed away from God, from ourselves, from our fellow human beings. You can find all of that there. And the task is to strive to come back to self, to strive to come back to each other, and to strive to come back to God. And each one of those is an extremely difficult task and requires commitment. And a commitment is such a lovely word, but it's when you commit to working to, it's like the lost lamb. When you go out to get the lost lamb, it doesn't matter what you go through. It doesn't matter the weather. It doesn't matter how dark it is. You go, and it's a commitment that under any and all conditions you do. And so this is what happens down in the downtown east side, 24/7. And it's something that I believe that we all need to do. We all do that for each other. And in the truth and reconciliation process, we do that for our people. We do that for First Nations people. It's an amazing task to undertake. It's an amazing long haul. And my favorite line in this what we call the big book is, yes, there's a long road of reconstruction ahead. And that long road of reconstruction begins with one tiny act of showing someone how significant they are. I remember once I was given a plate, a breakfast, and the bread was cut in little slivers. The toast was cut. I thought, when I first saw it, I thought, how, this takes time, and why would anybody do this? It's, how important you are. And when you take the time to cut the toast in that little way, that extra way, and to put it around the plate in that extra way, it's to let you know there's a little more extra put forth for you. And that little act just went so deep and gave me a new identity, and gave me a new, that little child who was insignificant and didn't have solid ground to walk on, or had this ground that was shameful ground, something to try to move away from or get away from. The way that toast was cut was a way to show me that the ground that I now had to walk on was solid, because I was important. And I think that when you are walking, when you want to show that you are a messenger of God, it's those tiny little acts that really make a huge difference, because they're so tiny that they're so personal. So I just really would like to leave that with you all, that Canada doesn't require that we overthrow the government and that we change all the patterns of the highways. Or, what Canada requires is that each one of us makes a commitment to do one small act of kindness for a First Nations person who you see. Because holding in your mind, holding in your memory where they come from, and holding in your heart what they need to see. They need to see the face of God that you're going to show them. Thank you for listening.